Moving on to number 15. Number 15 is a story that my friend Matt Moyer absolutely adores, and I can totally see why. This story is amazing. Producer Barry Letts, who would take over producing Doctor Who from Doctor Who and the Silurians, following Spearhead from Space, up to Robot, directs this story. He directs a few other stories in the Pertwee era, and I think he directs the Androids of Tara as well. Not Tara, the Android Invasion, as well as serving as an executive producer in season 18. So he did a lot for the show, as did his script editor partner of the Pertwee era, Terence Dix. But this story was his first contribution in some method to Doctor Who, his directorial debut on the show, and this is also a script by David Whittaker. It's a season 5 story with the second Doctor, and it's the most recent classic story to have all of its episodes recovered, not reconstructed or animated. Sorry, the MCDs are trying to fall down, but all of its episodes survive. It's the most recent completely surviving story at time of recording. This is, of course, The Enemy of the World from Season 5 with the Second Doctor, 1967 to 68. This story is absolutely outstanding. This is a fantastic story. For starters, Patrick Troughton in a dual role, and he's fantastic as both the Doctor, as per usual, and Salamander, the villain of the story. Jamie and Victoria are also really great in this, and Fraser Hines and Deborah Watling continue to give great performances. It's a really great James Bond-esque espionage and spy thriller action story as well, so it's almost a prototype for the Jon Pertwee era, in terms of the action at least. And it's just a brilliant story with some great supporting characters, great plots, and despite being 6 parts, it doesn't drag. It actually moves at a pretty good pace and twists and turns in some really good spots, and just absolutely brilliant and really enjoyable. But yeah, Enemy of the World, just absolutely fantastic. And I'm so glad this story is back in the archives without a proper visual version of this story, like the episodes in full or an animated version of the story. If it was just reconstructions, perhaps it might not be given as good of a reputation. Maybe some people won't like it as much, which is something I had a similar thing with Fury from the Deep. Perhaps maybe when the animated version comes out, I might like it more. But certainly Enemy of the World, as it stands as a full, complete story, just absolutely masterpiece. Just absolutely brilliant. Moving on to number 14. Number 14, I should have mentioned at the start, this list has at least one entry from each Doctor. This one is my favourite story from the Third Doctor's era, and this is, of course, The Daemons from Season 8 with the Third Doctor, 1971. Yeah, I think this is a great story with the black magic and the Master being a fantastic villain in this story. Some great fun. Also, I love how Yates and Benton get involved, how much of an involvement they have, and they're out of unit uniform for a bit. They just look normal civilians, and they're great, having some great action stuff, some great sciencey sci-fi black magic stuff. Miss Hawthorne's a great supporting character, and there's some really great supporting villains as well now and again. And even the Brigadier and Company having to get across the boundary is quite funny, and when they do, action kicks off. And Box also a pretty good little statue villain. The only kind of issue I sort of have with the story is that the Third Doctor does kind of insult Jo quite a bit. I mean, every now and again. I mean, it's fair enough if he doesn't believe in magic, but sometimes he just insults Jo as a person in places. So I'm not sure what was going on with the characterization of the Doctor in some of these scenes. And also, it's either the cliffhanger. I think it's the cliffhanger of Part 2. It's not that good. to be honest. But ultimately, this story is a very good story and easily my favourite of the Jon Pertwee era, and just an absolute fun thrill of a ride. Number 13. Speaking of a thrill of a ride, this story ends the classic series on a spectacular level with some fantastic visuals, great scripts by Roland Munro, and great directing. And Sylvester McCoy on his A game for the final time. Well, minus Dimensions in Time, the movie, and the audios. But in terms of incumbent era, minus Dimensions in Time, this is his last A game performance. And this is, of course, Survival from Season 26 with the 7th Doctor, 1989. Yep, this is the finale of the entire classic show, and it goes on a massive bang. It is so good. This is such a great story. The first episode is just people being kidnapped by these strange cats and taken to this cheetah planet, and then you get to explore the cheetah planets in the second episode. Before the third, they have to escape the cheetah planet, and that leads to a final confrontation back on Earth. It's also great that it's set in Ace's hometown of Perivale, the Earth stuff, and we got the return and the final appearance of Anthony Ainley as the Master. Well, apart from his Death of the Doctor scenes, but for his final TV story, Anthony Ainley, just absolutely amazing as the Master. And yeah, and this is also a great story. Anyway, if this wasn't the last story of the classic series, I think it still would be this high on this list. But I think the fact that it is the final story of the classic show does add the speciality to it. But even so, if Season 27 had been made, if Season 28 had been made, etc., then this story would still be on this list. This one would still be very high, depending on how good Season 27 and Season 28 were. But still, absolutely a brilliant story, and more than worthy for the show to go out on. Also, classic series fans who aren't so keen on new series stories, this is Roland Munro's better script for the show. Eaters of Light wasn't that good. But anyway, moving on to number 12. Now, we've just had the final story of the classic series. No, we're not going back to the very first, but we are going as far as the William Hartnell era for my personal favourite William Hartnell story. So my number 12 choice is The Daleks' Master Plan from Season 3 with the First Doctor, 1965 to 66. This is another fantastic story. It's 12 parts, 13 if you count Mission to the Unknown. Although I count that as a separate story, so we'll just mention that briefly and then just carry on. This story is a 12-part epic plus Mission to the Unknown, and it just moves at a really great pace. Yeah, maybe it could have been cut down a little bit in episode 7. I know it was Christmas, but did that have to be what they had to have on Christmas Day? Couldn't they have had at least some sort of fun Dalek adventure in the middle of their big Dalek adventure? It's just questionable, and the New Year's Day episode isn't that much better, to be honest. Although it does bring back the meddling monk. But this story is still a fantastic story. The final 2 episodes are amazing, and most of the other episodes are also really great. Episodes 2, 5, and 10 are the only 2 surviving stories of this story, making this one of only 2 stories on this list, including and only one of 3, including honourable mentions, to be partly missing and had to have a reconstruction or animation. In this case, this and Evil the Daleks in honourable mentions had to have reconstructions, and The Invasion has had its episodes animated. Well, it's probably also had reconstructions as well, but they got animated as well. Fingers crossed Master Plan and Evil will also get animated at some point. But it will be a massive task doing 12, maybe even 13 episodes. But yeah, I think this one was a fantastic story and a really, really great First Doctor adventure. Considering it's 12 episodes, it's 3 times as long as the other stories in Season 4. No wonder all the others, not Season 4, Season 3. There's 10 stories in Season 3, and 8 of these stories are 4 parts. The only 2 are Mission to the Unknown and Master Plan that are not, and that's 1 and 12 respectively. But considering this one's basically the length of 3 of the other stories of this season, it makes sense that, apart from Mission, they were all 4-parters and none of them went any higher. And then that, just as well. Season 3 honestly felt like the longest season when watching it, because there were so many stories. But thankfully they were all 4-parters, so they didn't drag too long, apart from this Mission, which were 12 and 1 respectively. But this one was a great story, really enjoyed it, and I had a fantastic time with it for the most part. Some weaker episodes, especially episode 7 and maybe episode 8, but on the whole, a really great story. And if you discount besides Trial of a Time Lord, it's technically the longest story of Doctor Who, longest single story, with 12 episodes, running it at approximately 5 hours. 300 minutes, 5 hours, so that's basically the longest Doctor Who story, after Trial of a Time Lord, which would be about 555. Although the longest story of the Doctor Who universe would probably be Torchwood Children of Earth, which is 5 hours exactly. Miracle Day, I think, is maybe even longer than that, if that's considered a full story. But I think Children of Earth is more like Trial, whilst Miracle Day is more like the Key to Time saga. Okay, moving on to number 11, and then I'm going to take a small break and then come back to you guys with the top 10. Number 11 is... I know my friend and subscriber Jack McCulloch is going to be happy to see this on the list, although disappointed it's only 11th and not top 1. Top 1. The Deadly Assassin from Season 14 with the 4th Doctor, 1976. Yeah, sorry, Jack. It's not number 1 of all time for me. It's top 11 of the classic series, and probably would still be top 20 to 25 of the overall. But The Deadly Assassin is not quite top 10 material for me. But it's not this ranking anyway. 4th Doctor and 70s ranking overall, it came 4th, and it's the best story of season 14. But when it comes to my top 20 classic series stories, it's only 11th. And when it comes to overall, it'll probably be lower. No, it definitely will be lower, because there's going to be a couple of new series stories that will be joining the top 10, top 15, maybe even top 20. But anyway, Deadly Assassin is a great story. It's the only story of the show where the Doctor goes alone, no companions. It's the only companion night story without a companion popping in at some point. The Woman Who Lived is probably the next closest to a companion night story with no companion popping at some point, but Clara does pop in at the end, and similarly Midnight the same, but with Donna popping in at the start and end. So Deadly Assassin's the only companion night story, and it sees the Doctor on his own, working with some Time Lord friends to stop the Master, this time played by Peter Pratt. Oh yeah, they remembered that the Master can regenerate like the Doctor. So whilst it's a shame Roger Delgado passed away before they can do some final stories with him, the Master was thankfully a character they could use again. So after a bit of time, they brought him back for one appearance before he came back properly in the 1980s. Although I do think Peter Pratt's my least favourite of the classic series Masters. Although he is playing the same incarnation as Geoffrey Beevers, who I like in the TV series, but I adore in Big Finish. But that's Keeper of Traken, and that's not on this list. Top 40 maybe. But, but still, Peter Pratt does a great performance as the Master, the Crispy Master, as we may as well just call him. Or unless you have any other options. And yeah, it's just a great story, and the stuff in The Matrix is absolutely brilliant. This is the first of at least 3 times the Doctor has beaten The Matrix in the TV series, the third and most recent being in The Timeless Children, the most recent story broadcast. The second, of course, being in The Trial of a Time Lord, The Ultimate Foe. There's probably been a few other expanded media stories out there. And Deadly Assassin is just a fantastic story. I can totally see why Jack McCulloch loves this story. You can totally see why it's his favourite story. However, for me, in terms of the classic series, there's at least 10 more that I prefer, 3 of which are in the Tom Baker era, and there's plenty of new series stories I also prefer, so this one will be quite lower down when it comes to the overall ranking. But for right here, right now, it is certainly one of the strongest of the classic series. Just not quite enough to be top 10. Okay, I'm just going to have a quick break and then I'll come back to you with the top 10s. Right, due to the length of this video, I've decided to do this in a 2-part state. So this is the end of part 1, which is my 20th to 11th spots, as well as honourable mentions. So to recap the list so far, number 20 is Inferno, number 19 is The Invasion, number 18 is The Androids of Tara, number 17 is Pyramids of Mars, number 16 is Spearhead from Space, number 15 is The Enemy of the World, Number 14 is The Daemons, number 13 is Survival, number 12 is The Daleks' Master Plan, and number 11 is The Deadly Assassin. And my friends Matt Moyer and Jack McCulloch will be happy to see a couple of these stories onto this list, such as The Enemy of the World and The Deadly Assassin. And of course we've got to have stories like Inferno, Pyramids of Mars, Spearhead from Space, and The Daemons, which are The Daemons and Daleks' Master Plan, which are very popular stories. They're going to be on this list, obviously. And a few other popular ones like The Tangs of Wayne Chiang, and the Evil of the Daleks and the Brain of Morbius in my honourable mentions. But stay tuned for my top 10, as we'll be getting into top 10 territory with some very popular stories from the classic series, as well as some of my personal favourites, including some that I think need to have a bit more love from the fan base, as well as a few that totally deserve all the love that they do get. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time for part 2. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. And it's a story that was not too long ago in terms of recent number of years. Completely, it was the most, and it's the most recent. And so, Enemy of the World indeed rules the world into, well, 15th on this list at least. And, well, not, which is something I kind of felt with Fury from the Deep, but I'm hoping the animated version might make me love that story a bit. From season 8, 1971. From season 8, and then from season 8, with the third, excluding the TV movie, and Final Time as an incumbent incarnation, minus Dimensions in Time. Well, minus Dimensions in Time, the TV movie, and pretty much most of his audios. But I think the fact that it is the final classic story of this show, and that is of course my number 12 option on this list is from season 3. So my number 12 option is so this maybe some episodes could have been lost to cut it down a little bit. The earlier episodes aren't so good. Some earlier. Making this the only story on this list, apart from Mission to the Unknown and this one. But on the whole, a really great season. But I think ones like this and Trial, so I'd probably say more likely Children of Earth. Okay, moving on to number 11, and before we take a small Fourth Doctor ranking and 70s ranking, it came fourth. And yeah, but Woman Who Fell to Earth is not that one, sorry. The Woman Who Lived is probably the next closest example of this, but still. The Woman Who Lived is probably the next closest example to the woman who. So, whilst they couldn't do top 30 perhaps, but not with the most recent being The Timeless Child, and the second we're gonna cut to me ready to start. So now we're gonna cut to me ready with my number 10. That including one or two that maybe